My name is Taylor Bennett, and I am 38 now. After 18 months overseas, all I wanted was to sleep in my own bed again, smell the familiar creak of my childhood floorboards, and sit at the old wooden table where my mom used to serve Sunday breakfast. The drive home felt surreal. The winding country road lined with towering oaks, the faded barns I'd passed 1,000 times as a kid. But when I pulled into the driveway, my heart slammed against my chest. There was a strange SUV parked where my father's old blue truck should have been. A couple I'd never seen before was unloading grocery bags, their kids running around the yard like they'd lived there forever. My first thought wasn't anger, it was confusion. I'd been dreaming of this moment for months, of hugging my dad and walking into my house. Instead, it felt like I'd pulled into someone else's life. Before I get into how my entire world unraveled that day, if you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Because this is a story about betrayal you won't believe. I cut the engine and just sat there for a second, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Maybe I had the wrong house, I told myself. Deployment had been long, exhausting. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But no, the apple tree my mom planted was right there by the porch, blooming white petals in the spring sunlight. This was home. I climbed out of the truck slowly, my boots crunching against the gravel, and the woman stopped unloading groceries to give me a polite, cautious smile. "Can I help you?" she asked, tilting her head. I think there's been a mistake," I stammered, still trying to keep my voice calm. "I live here. My father, Frank Bennett, this is his house." The woman exchanged a quick, nervous glance with the man beside her. "Ma'am, we bought this property back in January," the man said gently. The previous owner moved out months ago. For a moment, I just stared at them, uncomprehending. "No, that's not possible," I said, shaking my head. "I've been deployed with the Army for the past year and a half. This is my home. I grew up here." The man's face softened, but his words felt like a punch to the gut. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "We were told the sale was urgent. Everything went through legally. We've been here since March." My pulse roared in my ears. I was an Army logistics officer, trained to stay calm under pressure, to solve problems under fire. But right then, my mind was blank. All I could think of was my mom's laugh in the kitchen, the way my dad used to fix the screen door every summer. Every memory, every part of my childhood standing right here, and these strangers were telling me it was theirs now. I stumbled back a step and scanned the yard. That's when I noticed the sign by the mailbox. Future site of Maple Ridge Luxury Cabins, a development company. Developers didn't just buy houses, they destroyed them. My breath caught. Were they planning to tear down my mother's garden? My grandfather's apple orchard? This can't be right, I whispered, mostly to myself. My dad would have told me he wouldn't just sell our home without... The woman cut me off gently, almost apologetically. "Look, maybe you should talk to him." "But here..." She reached into a folder and handed me a glossy real estate flyer. The photo on the front was unmistakable. My childhood home, with the words "sold" printed across the top in bold, crimson letters. My hands trembled as I stared at it. For 18 months, I dreamed of coming back to safety, to family, to the one place in the world that was mine. Now it was gone, sold out from under me. That was the moment my world cracked open, I said, my voice breaking as I clutched the paper. My home wasn't mine anymore. I drove like a madwoman to my dad's rental house, barely remembering to put the truck in park before jumping out. My heart hammered as I pounded on his door. The paper flyer crumpled in my fist. He had to explain this. There had to be a logical reason. Maybe he sold a section of land. Maybe there was some legal mix-up. The door swung open, and there he was, wearing his old flannel shirt, a beer in hand like it was any other lazy Sunday. "Taylor," he said, grinning, as if I hadn't just found strangers living in our house. "Back already? You look good, kiddo." I shoved past him into the small, cluttered living room. The sight made my stomach twist. Pizza boxes, unopened bills stacked on the counter, beer cans on the coffee table. It smelled like stale smoke and old regrets. "What the hell is going on, Dad?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "I just came from the house." "There's a family there. Our house, Dad. They said you sold it." He closed the door behind him, his smile fading just slightly. "Ah, so you heard. My blood boiled. You sold it?" I practically screamed. "Without even telling me? That was Mom's house. That land's been in our family for 3 generations. He sighed and walked into the kitchen, cracking open another beer like this was nothing. Taylor, calm down. It was for the best. The place was falling apart anyway. Taxes were killing me. And, well, this way, I can finally get out of debt. Debt? My hands curled into fists. You didn't just sell a rusty truck, Dad. You sold my home. My one safe place in this world. And you didn't even ask me? He turned, leaning casually against the counter. You're overreacting. It's just a house. Walls and wood. You've been gone for 1.5 years, Taylor. Life goes on. You'll see, this was the right move for the family. His words hit like a slap. Just a house? Okay, I said through gritted teeth, trying to stay calm. Then answer me this. How did you even manage to sell it without my signature? The deed's in both our names. That's when it happened. The moment my world shifted. A slow, almost smug smile crept across his face. You gave me the right too, remember? He said smoothly, taking a long sip of beer. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? He shrugged. Before you deployed, you signed over power of attorney. Said you trusted me to handle things while you were gone. Guess you didn't read the fine print. I was standing in my dad's kitchen 18 months ago, duffel bag by the door, about to leave for deployment. He'd handed me a stack of papers, saying they were just for paying bills and keeping the lights on. I didn't even think twice. You've got enough to worry about, he'd said warmly. Let me take care of things here. I'd signed without hesitation. After all, he was my dad, the man who raised me after Mom died, the man I trusted more than anyone. The memory snapped back into the present like a whip. My knees went weak. You used my trust to steal everything, I whispered, barely able to breathe. Frank didn't even flinch. I did what had to be done. You'll thank me someday. My vision blurred with rage and heartbreak. That's when the horrifying truth slammed into me like a freight train. My father hadn't just betrayed me, he'd stolen everything my mother ever loved, and he'd done it with my own signature. The next morning, I drove out to the edge of our old property, parking just beyond the line of no trespassing signs. I couldn't bring myself to leave yet, not completely. Through the early fog, I could just make out the apple orchard my grandfather planted, the same one where Mom used to take me every spring to gather blossoms for the kitchen table. As kids, we used to call it Mom's Garden of Heaven. It wasn't just land. It was her soul woven into the earth. She'd work barefoot in the soil while humming old folk songs, and I'd follow behind her with a toy shovel pretending to help. Those memories were the one thing that kept me sane during deployment. Now, staring at the looming construction signs, I felt like her voice had been silenced forever. When Mom died, everything fell apart. Frank didn't just grieve. He vanished into himself, leaving me to pick up the pieces. I was barely 18 and suddenly responsible for Emily, who was only 12 then. I cooked, helped with homework, and made sure she got through high school while Dad, well, he spent most nights at the bar. Nathan, our older brother, had already moved to the city by then. He was always chasing bigger dreams, too busy to get caught up in family messes. He'd call once in a while, send birthday cards, but when it came to taking care of Emily, it was all on me. I thought about that as I headed to Emily's small rental house on the other side of town. She was the only family member I still truly trusted. Or at least, I wanted to believe that. When she opened the door, her face lit up. "Taylor, you're back!" She hugged me tightly, and for a moment, I felt like a little girl again, safe in my sister's arms. But then I pulled back and really looked at her. Emily's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She seemed tense, like someone with a secret sitting heavy on her chest. "I just came from Dad's," I said carefully, studying her expression. "We need to talk." Her hands twisted nervously. I know about the sale," she said quickly, almost too quickly. "But I thought Dad would have told you himself." My gut twisted. "So you did know. When were you planning to tell me, Emily?" She bit her lip, glancing away. "It's complicated. Dad said it was for the best." "The developer!" She froze, realizing what she'd just said. I narrowed my eyes. "The developer?" I never mentioned a developer. Emily's face drained of color. I just heard Dad say something once. That's all." "No," my voice was sharp now. "You know more than you're saying." "What deal did Dad make, and why are you defending him?" She shook her head furiously. "Taylor, please just drop it." "You don't understand." I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "Make me understand." Her silence told me everything, and in that silence, the truth crashed down on me like a thunderclap. Emily had been in on it. She'd known about the sale, about the developer, maybe even more than Dad himself. My own sister, I whispered, backing away. My chest felt hollow, my throat raw. You were part of the lie. Emily reached for me, tears streaming down her face, but I stumbled out the door before she could speak. As it slammed shut behind me, one chilling thought burned through my mind. Suddenly, I wasn't sure who I could trust. The drive back to my motel felt like a blur, my mind buzzing with anger and betrayal. First Dad, now Emily. My family, the people I'd bled for, sacrificed for, had lied to me, smiling to my face while tearing the ground out from under me. I sat on the edge of the lumpy motel bed, staring at the crumpled real estate flyer. Every part of me wanted to curl up and disappear. But that wasn't me. When I was deployed, there were days when fear threatened to paralyze me. Nights filled with the sound of distant explosions. Moments when the wrong decision meant people didn't make it home. And every single time, I forced myself to push past it. This wasn't just about a house anymore. This was about my mother's legacy, about not letting Frank rewrite our family's story. I wiped my face, sat up straighter, and muttered to myself, "Okay, Taylor, treat this like a mission. Gather intel, identify weaknesses, fight smart." The next morning, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in nearly 2 years, Jackson Cole. Jackson and I had served together during my first deployment. While I stayed in the Army, he'd gotten out and gone to law school. He'd always been the guy you wanted on your side in a fight, calm, brilliant, and relentless when he smelled injustice. "Taylor Bennett," he said when he answered, his voice warm but wary. "Haven't heard from you in forever. How bad is it?" "Bad," I said flatly. "My dad sold our house while I was deployed. Used a power of attorney I gave him. Now there's a developer ready to tear everything down. I need help, Jackson. I don't even know where to start." He let out a low whistle. "That's complicated. Look, I'll be honest. If the paperwork checks out, undoing a sale like that is almost impossible. Real estate law favors the buyer, especially if they acted in good faith. I don't care how impossible it is," I snapped. This was my home. My mom's home. I'm not walking away. There was a pause, and then Jackson said softly, "All right, send me everything you've got. Copies of the sale documents, any letters, and especially the power of attorney you signed. That's where we'll start." I dug through my old deployment folder and scanned the documents, my hands shaking. When Jackson called me back later that evening, there was a strange edge to his voice. "Taylor, are you sitting down?" My stomach tightened. "Yeah, why?" "I just reviewed the power of attorney," he said slowly. "And this isn't the same one you would have signed before deployment?" My breath caught. "What are you talking about?" I remember the day perfectly. Dad handed me a single page. I signed it without thinking. That was it. "This isn't a single page," Jackson said grimly. "It's 4 pages long. The language here gives him full control, not just over your bills, but over any assets you own, even the right to sell property in your name." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. "So you're saying he changed it? Added to it?" "More than that," Jackson said, his voice darkening. "This version has different formatting and a different notary stamp than what I'd expect from your original. Taylor, I think your father altered the document after you signed it." For a long moment, all I could hear was the rush of blood in my ears. He hadn't just betrayed me. He'd planned this, methodically, carefully, like a thief in the night. My voice came out hoarse. "Jackson, this isn't just about Dad being reckless, is it?" "No," he said grimly. "This is fraud, and if your sister's involved, you may be looking at a conspiracy." I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. This wasn't just a family feud anymore. It was war. Jackson didn't waste any time. By the next morning, he'd already started digging into Maple Ridge Development, the company that now held my family's land in its iron grip. He called me just after sunrise, his voice tight. "Taylor, this isn't some mom-and-pop development firm. These guys have been involved in at least 3 lawsuits in neighboring counties. Illegal zoning changes, shady land acquisitions, bribery allegations. Nothing ever sticks because they've got deep pockets and friends in high places." I gritted my teeth. "So they're crooks with good lawyers." "Worse," Jackson said flatly. "I'm seeing red flags for money laundering. This isn't just about flipping houses for profit. This company could be a front for something criminal." My hands clenched into fists. Mom's orchard, the garden she loved. Just a pawn in someone's dirty game. "Then we bring them down," I said. Jackson hesitated. "Taylor, going after Maple Ridge is one thing. Going after your father while they're involved? That's a whole different battlefield. You need to think about how far you're willing to go. I didn't answer. I already knew. I'd go as far as it took. By that afternoon, the pressure started closing in. I stopped by the diner in town for coffee, and every conversation seemed to stop when I walked through the door. A group of old neighbors sat near the window whispering behind their hands. "That's Frank's daughter," one of them muttered just loud enough for me to hear. "Causing trouble," another hissed. "She should be grateful her father even kept the place up while she was gone." Their words burned. This was my home, my inheritance, and somehow I was the villain. As I left the diner, a familiar voice called my name. It was Sheriff Darnell, a man who'd been friends with my father for decades. He leaned against his cruiser, arms crossed. "Taylor," he said in a tone that was just a little too casual. "Heard you've been poking around about that land deal." I crossed my arms. "Yeah, got a problem with that?" He gave me a sympathetic smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just some friendly advice. Maple Ridge isn't a company you want to mess with. And your dad's a good man. Maybe let this one go, huh?" The implied threat in his voice made my stomach turn. "You sound like you're telling me to walk away." "Exactly," he said softly. Walk away before someone gets hurt. Later that night, as I was reviewing documents with Jackson, there was a knock on my motel door. It was Emily. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. "Taylor," she whispered urgently, glancing over her shoulder. "Please, you have to stop digging." I froze. "Why? What aren't you telling me?" Her hands trembled as she grabbed mine. "You don't understand. Dad didn't have a choice. This wasn't about greed, it was survival." My breath caught. "Survival? Emily, what are you talking about?" Tears streamed down her face. "He was being blackmailed. Dangerous people, Taylor. The kind who don't just ruin lives, they end them." I staggered back, the room spinning. If what she was saying was true, then saving the house might cost more than I was ready to pay. For the first time since this nightmare began, a terrifying question lodged in my mind. Was I fighting to protect our family's legacy, or putting us all in mortal danger? Emily's tearful warning rattled me, but it didn't stop me. If anything, it lit a fire under me. Maybe Frank had been blackmailed. Maybe dangerous people were involved. But none of that changed the fact that my home had been stolen, our mother's legacy erased by lies and signatures forged in the dark. I wasn't going to let fear decide the ending to this story. "Move carefully," Jackson warned as we reviewed our growing pile of evidence at his office. His desk was buried under files, bank statements, and printed emails we'd scraped together. "This whole thing smells of organized fraud," he said, running a hand through his hair. "But if Maple Ridge realizes we're close to proving it, they won't play nice." I leaned forward, determination sharpening my voice. "Then we don't just expose them, we beat them at their own game. We get enough proof to take this to court and put my father on record. Once the truth's out, the whole house of cards falls." Jackson gave me a long, heavy look. "Just don't underestimate family. Sometimes they cut deeper than any enemy." I didn't want to admit he might be right. A week later, Nathan showed up out of nowhere. My big brother hadn't bothered to visit in years, but suddenly he was sitting on Dad's porch like he'd been here all along. "Taylor," he said, hugging me stiffly. "I heard about the mess with the house. Figured I should come home, see if I can help." Relief flooded me, until he opened his mouth again. "Look, I've talked to Dad. He had his reasons. You need to let this go before it destroys the whole family." I stared at him, stunned. "You're siding with him? Nathan, he committed fraud. He lied to me." Nathan's jaw tightened. "He's still our father. Whatever he did to protect us. You've been gone, Taylor. You don't know what it's been like here." My hands trembled. "Don't you dare blame this on me being gone." The fight didn't stop there. It spilled over into Thanksgiving dinner 2 days later. What was supposed to be a family gathering turned into a battlefield. Emily sat silently, eyes darting between us, while Dad and Nathan defended their choices like nothing was wrong. I slammed my fist on the table, the sound echoing through the house like a gunshot. "This isn't a family anymore," I shouted. "This is a cover-up." The room went quiet, everyone staring at me as if I were the enemy. When we finally got a court date, Emily surprised me. She came to my motel room the night before, clutching her hands nervously. "I'll testify for you," she whispered. "I can't keep lying. Mom would never forgive us." For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. Maybe Emily was finally breaking free from Dad's grip. Maybe the truth would come out. But in the courtroom the next morning, my hope shattered. When Emily took the stand, she wouldn't meet my eyes. And then, clear as day, she lied. She's mistaken, Emily said, her voice trembling. Dad never forged anything. He told us about the sale, and we all agreed it was for the best. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. As the judge scribbled notes and the room buzzed with whispers, Emily stepped down from the stand without once looking in my direction. That's when it hit me. The final, crushing truth. My family wasn't just broken, it had been bought. The courtroom felt colder than a battlefield. I sat at the plaintiff's table, hands clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. Across the aisle, Frank sat flanked by Maple Ridge's high-priced attorneys, his posture stiff but his expression unreadable. Emily sat behind him, avoiding my gaze, her face pale and drawn. This wasn't just about land or money anymore. This was about truth, about finally tearing away every lie my father had wrapped around our family. Jackson leaned close to me, his voice low. Remember, we don't need to prove everything today, just enough to make the judge question the legality of the sale. I nodded, though my stomach churned. The proceedings began, and Maple Ridge's lead attorney stood with a smug smile. Your Honor, this case is nothing more than a family dispute. The sale was perfectly legal. Mr. Frank Bennett acted with full authority under the power of attorney granted to him by his daughter. My blood boiled. My signature, the one Dad had altered, was being waved around like a weapon. Jackson rose, calm but firm. Your Honor, my client contends that the power of attorney was altered after she signed it. We will present evidence that not only was this a fraudulent act, but that Maple Ridge Development knowingly participated in a scheme to acquire property through illegal means. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman named Judge Whitmore, folded her hands. Proceed? Jackson began by questioning me on the stand. Taylor, why did you sign the original document before your deployment? I swallowed hard. To let my father pay bills and handle basic household needs while I was overseas. I trusted him completely. I never imagined he'd use it to sell our home. He nodded, then handed me 2 documents. Can you tell the court if either of these is what you signed that day? I studied them, heart pounding. This one, I said, holding up the single-page version. And this 4-page version? My voice cracked. I've never seen it before in my life. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Maple Ridge's lawyer smirked. Objection, Your Honor. There's no proof this so-called original document isn't fabricated. Jackson didn't flinch. Oh, there's proof. He strode to the judge's bench and laid down a notarized logbook. This is from the notary public who witnessed the original signing. Their records clearly show only a single page was stamped and filed on that date. The 4-page version appeared after Taylor deployed. The judge's expression hardened. Jackson turned back to the jury. But that's not all. Buried deep in the altered document is a clause that gives Maple Ridge exclusive rights to develop not just this property, but surrounding parcels. This language is identical to wording used in other fraudulent sales linked to them across 3 counties. The courtroom erupted into murmurs. Judge Whitmore slammed her gavel. Order! She leaned forward, her voice like ice. Mr. Cole, are you prepared to testify that this developer has been systematically defrauding landowners? Jackson's voice rang out. Yes, Your Honor. Her gaze shifted to me, sharp as a blade. And you, Ms. Bennett, are you prepared to testify against your own father? The room went silent. I felt every eye on me. Frank's, Emily's, Nathan's, even the neighbors who had whispered behind my back. My throat tightened. Yes, I said finally, my voice steady. I swore an oath to protect this country from enemies foreign and domestic. I never thought my own father would be one of them. But I won't stay silent. Frank surged to his feet, his face red with rage. You left me to drown, Taylor, he roared, pointing at me with a shaking hand. You think you're better than me because you wore a uniform and ran off to play hero? While you were gone, I was here, watching everything fall apart. Dad, stop, Emily cried, but he shoved her back without looking. You abandoned this family, he shouted. So don't stand there acting like you have the right to judge me. My chest ached, but I forced myself to meet his eyes. I didn't abandon you, Dad. You betrayed me. The judge banged her gavel furiously. Enough. This court will come to order. Everyone went silent, breathless with tension. Judge Whitmore adjusted her glasses and began to speak. After reviewing the evidence and testimony, this court finds the words hung in the air, a razor's edge of anticipation. And then the gavel came down. But the verdict was drowned out by the pounding of my own heart. The room was silent as Judge Whitmore's voice finally broke through the haze pounding in my ears. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Taylor Bennett. The words felt surreal, almost too heavy to absorb. The sale of the Bennett property is hereby declared null and void, she continued, her tone firm and unyielding. Furthermore, evidence of fraud and conspiracy will be referred to federal authorities for criminal investigation of Maple Ridge Development and any involved parties. The gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through the courtroom, like a rifle shot. For a moment, I couldn't move. My knees went weak with relief as tears burned behind my eyes. Jackson placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "You did it, Taylor," he whispered. "You won." Across the aisle, Maple Ridge's lawyers were already on their phones, their smug expressions gone. Frank sat motionless, face pale, his hands gripping the table so tightly his knuckles were white. When the bailiff announced the court was adjourned, he stood without looking at me. "Dad," I said, my voice trembling. "You can still fix this. We can—" He turned on me, eyes filled with something cold and bitter. "No," he snapped. "You chose them over me. You humiliated me in front of this entire town. Dad—" "Don't call me that." His voice broke, just for a second, before hardening again. "You've made your choice. Now live with it." And then he walked out of the courtroom, leaving a trail of silence in his wake. I knew in my gut he wasn't coming back. Not to me. Not to this family. Nathan approached me quietly, hands stuffed into his pockets. I was wrong, Tay," he admitted, eyes downcast. "I didn't believe you. I didn't want to believe Dad could do something like this." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "We all wanted to believe in him." He gave a small, sad nod. "I'll help you however I can, to fix whatever's left." It wasn't a full apology, but it was a start. Emily stood apart, tears streaking her face. "I thought I was protecting him," she whispered, voice breaking. "I didn't realize how deep it went. I should have trusted you. You can't undo what's been done," I said gently, though my heart ached. "But we can start over, if you want to." She nodded, clutching my hand like a lifeline. Weeks later, I stood on the edge of the property, looking out over the empty foundation where my childhood home once stood. I had the land back, but the house, the memories, were gone. Jackson had asked if I wanted to rebuild right away. I'd said no. Some wounds needed time to heal before new walls could be raised. For now, the land itself was enough. It was proof that my fight hadn't been in vain. As the sun set over the horizon, I whispered to myself, "This isn't just where it ends. It's where I begin again." The land was quiet now, the kind of quiet that used to bring me peace as a little girl. I knelt in the soft earth, hands dirty, breath steady. Before me stood a sapling, a young apple tree, its fragile branches reaching toward the sky. My mom used to say apple trees were a promise of tomorrow. "This is for you, Mom," I whispered, patting the soil around the base. Behind me, the wind rustled through the tall grass where our house once stood. The memories were still there, laughter echoing from summer nights, my mother humming while she baked pies, even the fights that seemed so big at the time but now felt so small. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the last piece of the past I'd been holding on to, the old house key. It was scratched and worn, the brass dulled from years of use. For a moment, I closed my fist around it, my chest tightening. Then I walked to the riverbank. The water glimmered in the morning light as I opened my hand and let the key slip through my fingers. It vanished with a soft splash, carried away by the current. I fought for my country, I fought for my home. But the hardest battle, I said softly, voice breaking, was forgiving myself for ever trusting him. I turned toward the rising sun, the apple tree behind me, and walked forward, into whatever came next.